This is a question which has intrigued everybody, that how could a company from India can do 10 million in 2 months time? Now, everybody, I've been talking to many founders, and through my journey, I've been doing this as for me as well. I think the big question on everyone's mind is, how do you do it, right? Every founder out there, and I'm being founder myself, everybody works really hard. Everybody is trying to solve some world problem, some world scale, sometimes local scale. And this is a question which has intrigued everybody, or I would say it has caught everybody's imagination, that how could a company from India can do 10 million in 2 months time? You are now, rubbing shoulders with Lovable, Replit, and I might dare say OpenAI, Anthropic, right? Which has shown that kind of growth. And 6 months back, I think including media, founders, everybody in the Indian ecosystem was trying to figure out, can we create global AI companies from India, I think. So that, I think, is the proudest moment for me personally speaking, and I'm sure all of you here. So I think well done, Mukund. I've been a big shout out to you to get there.
Right. No, I mean, we are super excited. I think, I think whenever there is a new technology wave, there's a reset. Like globalization has taken us so far, right? I think like India has the talent, like has the access, right? I think it's like truly our moment to sort of, just play the big game.
Yeah. All right. So 10 million in 2 months. So how does it feel? Let me first ask you that.
I think the numbers are still sinking in. I mean, obviously, like everybody's super excited. I think the day we sort of reached 10 million ARR was also the day of GPT-5 launch. So there was a little celebration. We clapped, we cut a cake, but then we were just back to shipping because we wanted to get GPT-5 out to all our users. It's just been sort of constant shipping for us. Yeah.
Do you feel excited? Do you feel a little bit fearful? What is there next? What is the emotion in the team? How is the team feeling about it?
Yeah, I think super excited. I think everybody's super pumped, and it just feels like a start of a new marathon for us. Like speed is really fast, but like I feel that I think team is very energized right now, right? Like we think that like we are even more ambitious. When we started, we thought, okay, like this could be a number that we could get to like in shorter time, and just getting there like makes us believe even more that we can run even faster, get even bigger numbers. And I think more than anything else, I feel that validation of the product is working, and people are excited about that.
So who were your first 3-4 hires who really shared the same excitement as you did?
Yeah, so I mean, I was very lucky to get some of the early people that I'd worked with before as part of the team, and we had this like shared sort of mission to sort of build something really big, right? Like we were constantly thinking about like, hey, what are the problems that we can solve for the next 20 years, right? And be excited about and stay excited about. So we had like one of my like rockstar engineers from Dunzo like was part of the early team. Then there is Saurabh who leads product. So I think we were able to build like a very strong early core team, right, which allowed us to iterate really fast on problems.
Yeah, I've been spending some time with Mukund in his office. I think this team works till every day 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah. Typically, like we have like 14 hours a day, 6-7 days a week. Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. That also why you're shipping so fast and how are you keeping up with the market. But I think I remember, when we first met and we were brainstorming, you had focused the product on the developers, right?
Right.
But I think your proud moment later on when you launched was very different, right? So I remember you had that bakery owner. Remember, can we get a photograph of the? This is the. I think. Can you tell us?
Yeah. This is one of the first sort of sites where we saw a lot of usage on the platform, and kind of in a microwave went viral. And this is still in the beta phase. We were not fully launched. We had just sort of given it access to a few people. And our earlier thesis was that like a lot of developers, senior developers, PMs, like semi-technical people would use us, right? We were really blown away that people with no tech background, like business owners, like who were really close to the problems, were truly able to come and build and ship and get usage on the platform. And I mean, the realization that I had was that like there are a billion people who have an idea stuck in their head, right? And we can truly unlock that for the world. Yeah.
So what did this user do? Who can you give some?
Yeah, she is a bakery owner in Philippines, and she built this whole website to get orders on her own, and presumably like she was probably on another platform, or she did not have any online presence, but now she was able to build this app on her own, and like very constant feedback that we get from a lot of users that like they haven't had an idea on their head, and they've got into a dev shop, gotten a quote of $100,000, $50,000 to build that app, and they can come to Emergent now and they can build it for like under $1,000, $2,000 on their own, right? And I think we are sort of unlocking sort of a new wave of iteration that was not possible before. And I think truly democratizing like software development, and that feels really exciting.
I think if I understand you, you're not only just building app, but you're providing end-to-end hosting, deployment.
Yeah. So we took a very end-to-end approach. Like we just like thought. I mean, fundamentally, we think that we are building real software, right? So we are not just sort of copy pasting Claude code into like a web UI, right? And we think that the production grade software will require us to bake in the best practices. So that's why we build everything ground up. Like we have no sort of library plugins. Like we have built like entire stack completely on its own. And that allows us to like iterate really fast on things, and also like gives us the end-to-end visibility of the software development, and that allows us to sort of build way more complex software than anybody else can build today.
Understand. Brilliant. But before we go deeper into how do you build, I think I also want to bring in Maddie. I know he cannot be here because he's based in San Francisco.
Right.
And Maddie is his twin brother. He's a photograph. And I couldn't figure out that you were twins, right? So I know it's...
We are actually triplets. I have a sister too, and she's in New Zealand. Yeah. So our birthday is like span across multiple time zones.
Okay, understand. She's based
in New Zealand, yeah.
So when we first met with Mukund and Maddie, he's based in San Francisco. It's the first time actually we, at least in my small investment history, we invested in a twin combination. So what's the story? What is the idea of, did you share a common mission? Did you want to do it all the time? What's the story behind it?
No, I mean, like Maddie and I have been sort of very close. We started programming when we were age 12. I remember so my dad used to go to US all the time, and generally my ask would be like, hey, get me a gaming CD, and I would play a game. And like one time he got us a Visual Studio CD, and I was really upset that, like, hey, I wanted a game. And but that sort of kickstarted our programming journey, and we would just spend hours together just building things. Obviously, I mean, we were always thinking, hey, we'll build something together. And stars in the line. Like, he is a PhD, so we both went to US to do our PhDs. I dropped out of the PhD program. He did finish his PhD program and worked at a bunch of research labs. And then he was an early member of deep learning team at Amazon. So fairly research oriented as a person. I've obviously been a lot more on the engineering side. I was in Google, then leading tech at Dunzo. And so we had always this itch, and we would talk on hours on phone, in the night that, hey, this is the new idea, and we will keep brainstorming. And finally, when this whole AI wave was coming, it felt like the platform was right for us to sort of come together, bring in his research experience, bring in my sort of engineering experience to build something truly, truly big. And we always thought that we would want to build something that is really grand and global in nature, right? And I've always thought that, hey, why is there no Google from India? Why is there no Facebook from India, right? And that's been in the back of my head for a while. And I think we were just finally very enamored by this problem of automatically creating software, and that's sort of been something that we've been practicing for a while. So I think things just came together, and I think AI provided us the right platform to sort of take this to the next level.
I think when I met you the first time for 15 short minutes, I think one thing that I came excited back with was that your scale of ambition, right? And while you're saying it very softly that, you always thought you can build Google from India, what really inspired your confidence you can really do it, right? A lot of people, all of us want to build companies like Google, right? Enduring companies like OpenAI or Google or Tesla's of the world. But what gave you that confidence that you and your brother Maddie can really do it?
I mean, we didn't have any reason to believe otherwise, right? To be honest, we also we are very competitive as brothers also. We've been sort of competing on a bunch of things and always sort of striving to be the best in the world. So even when we hire people, when we sort of started looking at coding as a problem, we picked up the most hardest benchmark in the world and became world number one on that, in under a month. Right. So I think there always been, we have seen people across us who have been really brilliant and doing a bunch of things. And when we we said, okay, we are no different. We can also do it, right? And I think as long as you are attached to the problem, and you can sort of deeply relate with the problem, I think you can solve it. I've grown up looking up to Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, right? And I've always thought, okay, that this is what we should also be doing. Yeah.
So basically, you're saying if Bill Gates can do it, we can also do it, right?
Yes.
So I think it's a big mission. So good, good wrapping on that. I think that is what we need more. I think the scale of ambition, which I think also drives a lot of decision that you take.
And generally, when people come to me and say, hey, this is what we can do, and I'm always like, hey, why can't we do 10x more? Why can't we do 100x more? What will it take to get there, right? And I think generally that sort of breaks the frame of thinking of people, right? And even on my team, when people come and say, hey, let's do this, my always question is, okay, what will it take to get 100x more, right? Or can we do faster, right? And I think when you ask those questions, I think people tend to think out of the box, right? And usually it's possible, because even the 10 million ARR, earlier we were okay, we'll get there in 6 months, and I was okay, how fast did other companies grow? Why can't we grow faster than them? And and that just pushed us to get there. Yeah.
No, amazing story. I love Maddie as well. I've had a chance to interact with quite closely. I think so. Now let's move on to the main topic of vibe coding, right? And I think 12 months back, this whole or 18 months back, the whole vibe coding came into play. Started casually. Now it's a big industry, or probably the insane market as well. We have OpenAI launching into it. We have Cloud Code launching into it. We have multiple players coming into it. So what is your vision of the industry? How do you see this industry?
I mean, vibe coding as a term got coined by Andre Karpathy, right? And essentially that means that like you like talk to AI just like you would talk to a developer, and give instruction in plain English language, and like the AI will build the software out, and you never have to look at the code, right? So the whole vibe in vibe means that you'll just vibe check the output of the code, right? And okay, I don't like this color. You'll ask the agent to change the color. I think it's the beginning of a new revolution in my mind. Like I think the next generation of software is going to be like built in this way where you will. And I think for most knowledge work, not just software, but I think like most of the knowledge work is going to move in that direction where you're largely interacting with agents, giving more and more complex instruction over time, and checking and verifying their output and providing feedback. And the way we think of this, that like we want to be this platform where all the new software gets built, right? And we think that this is just like any new revolution, right? Like it in the beginning it feels very sketchy, it feels very like broken. Like you would see that vibe coding like has doom loops, and vibe coding, like you'll see like bunch of these negative sentiment. But I think that's how all the new revolutions start, and we are very bullish on like AI exponential. We think that exponential is going to continue, and from day zero, like one of our like founding principle has been that we'll always bet in the direction of AI, right? And like even when we started, when like Copilot and like that model was the most popular model, we took a very big bet that agents are going to be autonomous working, and agents will be big, and we were building for that from day zero, right? To me, like we feel like the platform like ours are going to be the future where the net new software gets developed, and as sort of the cost of software development comes down, right? I think like the net new software development is going to sort of overshadow what exists today, right? So I'm pretty sure like somebody will put up a stat like in a year's time, then like the vibe coded apps will be a lot more bigger than the regular software that there is right now.
Can you give few examples of the apps that
Yeah, I think people. I mean, I'm constantly blown away by what people are able to build. Oftentimes, I'll see the app and I'll say, even as a developer, it'll take me a lot of time to build that. And these are people who have no coding skill but are able to build things. People have been building like portfolio tracking management software. Like there is a person who's built this EV charging marketplace. A lot of e-commerce apps on the platform. A lot of AI apps. Roughly 60-70% of the apps like have some AI component in it. And these are like complex apps with like local models, RAG. A lot of people are building agents on the platform, and currently like the usage on these apps is growing pretty exponentially for us. Like
I remember this app, somebody built a selfie app, right? What was that?
Yes. Somebody built this, and this app kind of went viral. Like it took down our platform for a while, and it had like 100K visitors. They built this really cool app where you upload a photo of a product, you describe the product, and it'll give you a chatbot that you can embed anywhere, and that chatbot will basically sell the product. And these are just the starting point, right? I think apps are going to get a lot more complex as we grow.
I think one of the biggest sort of argument against vibe coding has been that people take it as a hobby. It doesn't go into production. So how many production apps have we seen so far? What is the behavior we have seen so far?
I mean, now we are starting to see a lot more apps in usage. And I would say roughly maybe 10,000-20,000 apps like are getting used like on a daily basis in production setting now. We are seeing like a lot more people now getting confidence on like shipping these apps to production. We are also constantly improving the system. Like we have added like authentication, bunch of those things which are necessary for people to take these apps to production. And I think you'll start seeing like a flurry of these apps coming out in production very soon.
And when you were talking about vibe coding, you were not the first one, right? There was Lovable, there was Replicator, which is an old company, and there was Bolt, right? And I remember talking to, when we did a large seed check and you $5.5 million, people thinking, is this another one vibe coding app? Right. Why would it be successful, right? So what did you think? How will you compete against Lovable and Replicator of the world at that time?
I mean, when we started looking at the problem, like our worldview was that like for building a real software, you'll need to embed best practices within the process. What we realized that like Lovable, Bolt at that time were largely an artifact plus, right? Like they were just taking what Claude was giving and just like putting that on the web. And we played around and we realized like it was, even though it was promising that, hey, I'm going to give you production ready, workable apps, they were really far. It was just a facade, like a UI that kind of works. And for sort of prototyping and like mocking, I think that use case was fine. But we found this really, really big gap, right? Like where just taking things from a mock-up to like a production-ready app was still a big journey, right? And we saw that as a big gap, and we took like a couple of like really big bets on how to build the software end to end, right? So from day zero, like our process has been that we want to emulate what like great engineering teams do, using multiple agents on the platform, and our focus was like and I mean, there were like two big bets that we took. One was that like the ability of the coding agent is going to be paramount, right? And that's where we build world's best coding agent. And second was like the infrastructure that we built, where we have full visibility of the entire process of software development. So we built everything from scratch, ground up, and control every single piece of infrastructure that exists in software building process. And that gives us visibility, like the tighter feedback loops. I think anybody who's working on agents would realize that agents are as good as feedback loops, and that's where we focus a lot more on like saying that, okay, how do we make sure that feedback loops are tighter? There's a self-learning that is happening at the agentic layer also, right? And like like when we sort of ran our own evals, like we were pretty confident that like the product is way better than what is out there in the market today.
I believe in solving one or few hard problems, right?
Right.
So while you explain this entire vision of building end-to-end apps, building infrastructure, what was some of the hardest problems that you cracked, and what it took to solve them?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think general thesis at Emergent is that we when we try to pick a problem, whether it's growth, whether it's like software, we generally look at what is the hardest problem to solve in the space, right? And like if we get around those problems, like we will solve them better. On agentic side, I mean, I think the architecture that we got right, and after multiple iteration, like we had like hundreds of failures before we sort of settled on this multi-agent architecture. Now, sort of world is converging on that architecture. Like second, I think the way we sort of do context handling, the way we do sort of self-learning, and what really helped was us putting like and this is my current thesis right now on company building, is that you need to put one number in front of everybody, right? And sort of like align everybody in the team to look at this number. We just got a big TV and we put that number in front of everybody now. And so, I mean, earlier it was a benchmark, SWE bench that we were trying to crack, then it became our internal eval, then became a launch date, then became a revenue. Now it's like end app usage metric. So I think like as we are able to channel teams around that one number, that helps. I think second hard problem was just like managing the infra. Like how do you build infra for AI scale? How do you build to provide full visibility into the entire development lifecycle? And I mean, again, one of the things that I sort of learned from Dunzo was like the importance of having a full stack approach, right? Like where we like when we started Dunzo, there were like 67 companies building the exact same thing. What differentiated us then was that we were solving the hardest problem of logistics, right? Which nobody else wanted to touch at that point, right? And here also like we are solving one of the hardest problem of like how do you sort of understand agents better? How do you have better evals in the system, and those kind of things. So generally, like we are focused on like, hey, what is the hardest problem in the space?
And I just want for also all the founders who are listening to this or listening to this right now, I want to highlight what role that Maddie's research background played in the success, right? Because what we are seeing globally right now, researchers of course are being paid $1 billion, $100 million, right? So research is becoming so important, and that also leads you to help take a crack at some of those hardest problems, right? So how did Maddie's background help there?
Yeah, I think having a research bent in the team is super helpful, especially like when you're attacking these new verticals, right? And there were a couple of breakthroughs where we were much ahead of time. Things like test time compute, inference scaling, and those were like something that we sort of had fundamentally discovered like way before anybody else, right? And some of those things are in the product right now. There's a new version coming out end of month, like which sort of utilizes a bunch of these things even a bigger way. And I think I think like my background in when I was in Google, I was doing web search ranking, which was extremely data oriented as a problem. So we would look at two search algorithms, look at experiments side by side, and then sort of iterate on those. And Maddie's background is similar, like where like how do we run a lot of experiments, and that sort of has helped us set a culture of like very extreme rapid experimentation within the company, right? Where everybody is allowed to experiment on new ideas. We treat every single new feature or every single new approach as an experiment. So we are willing to fail and fail much faster than everybody else. I think that has set the right stage for us. And also, like I think some of these things are very new, where you need to fundamentally like rethink the approaches, and also and that's where like I think some of the research thinking sort of comes into play today.
Understand. So for the founders who are starting now or building the products, right? So would you advise them to have a researcher on their team?
I mean, if you can get somebody from Meta, super intelligence, why not? No, I think. I think research is a mindset. I don't think researcher is compulsory. Like, if you can get one, nothing like it. But like, I think research is a mindset where one, you're willing to stay true, right, to the data that is telling you. Like, and second, I think you're just like rapidly iterating on experiments, and hypothesis testing. And I think more than anything else, like you're not attached to an idea in particular. Like you're attached to the truth, and that's why like I think having like good eval systems, having good benchmarks, like really help.
So good. So now you've cracked the. I'm going back in time 2 months before, which is not
Right.
a long time. That you cracked the product approach. I think took a bet on multi-agent architecture, which I'm glad has worked out. Solved test time compute, inferencing. Now growth, which
Right.
I think all of us are waiting to hear from. Where is this 10 million number coming from? So how did you, if you go back before the product launch, I remember some of the conversation in,
Right.
we went to a restaurant in San Francisco, all of us, right? We were discussing how you're going to get to growth number. And I remember you said, you want to still think about it.
Right.
I almost fell off my chair that you're going to launch in 2 weeks time and you're still thinking about it. So can you give us some idea of first some steps into how do you think about the growth? Right before you were just ready for product launch till today, 2 months as we speak.
Yeah, I mean, growth was almost an afterthought for us. Like, we were like heads down building the product. Like, I think first thing, product really matters, right? I think like, like product needs to show up, deliver, be magical. Like, I think without that, like a lot of the other aspects don't work that well. And it's a compounding effect, like, that you need to have. So we spent a bunch of time like just, like beta testing the product, making sure that it's working. I mean, 4 weeks before launch, we had like zero idea of like how to launch, how to get the word out. We realized that we're in a crowded space, right? And like unless, even though the product is good, like unless we sort of get the word out, unless we get a lot of people to try it out, like we will not be able to sort of, like showcase what the product has to offer. So in like 3 weeks, we sort of built out the entire growth team, like very, very small team, but like crack team. We looked at, okay, like which companies have grown faster, what are the playbooks that we can borrow from them. We treated growth just like an engineering problem, right? Like we sort of got the numbers saying that, okay, like how many impressions do we need? What would the conversion look like? What would that lead to as a revenue? And like a lot of our, so I mean, like one of the big learning early on was that like we need to have a massive launch day. We focused a lot of our energy on this big launch day, right? So I remember like asking you and asking everybody in my network to like DM everybody saying that, okay, this is the day we're going to launch. And the velocity of I mean, we studied the Twitter algorithm, we studied the TikTok algorithms. We figured out, okay, what does the Twitter algorithm and TikTok sort of cares about. A little bit reverse engineered, like, okay, this is the kind of velocity we need in the post to sort of go viral. Once we set up the team, like we spent the first, like, so we set a date first 2 weeks of the launch. So we had this invite code on, so people could only sign up with an invite code. And for the first 2 weeks, like we took a roster of creators that we wanted to work with. We took a roster of content that we sort of thought was sort of going to work, and just A/B tested the hell out of it, right? So we like had this invite code, like, and we had this like strong attribution to know that which content, which creator is going to work, right? And then we sort of plan everything around that launch date using those creators. And after that, like, focus on I mean, the bunch of things that we did, we sort of, like reverse engineered, like which creators have how many views, what kind of content like is flying for them. And so that like we match the right creator with the right content. We did a bunch of experiments. I think we ran about like 100 to 200 experiments just before launch, like on small budgets to see like, what's going to work, and then sort of just amplify everything like during the launch. On launch, I think we had a target of about 10,000 signups. And I think we probably like, even with invite code, I think we crossed like 20,000 signups that day. So we were like really sort of focused on experimentation and getting that launch day right. And that sets the right platform and momentum for you to sort of continue building on that.
I think what I'm hearing is that the narrative has shifted from a traditional marketing to influencer marketing, right? And you kind of cracked that without making too much noise about it. So can you share some insights into that?
Yeah, I mean, I think influencer marketing definitely is a good starting point. I mean, for us, what worked was, like going big on X, going big on TikTok. Like that's where we saw a lot of the audience were, right? And again, this like very strong experimentation sort of framework and data-driven sort of approach where we measure every single thing. We know which geo, which hours, do we expect traffic from, and sort of content is planned that way. Experimented a bunch with like what kind of creators will work for us, right? And we scraped a bunch of data, like reverse engineered that, okay, like which creators have what kind of following in what kind of geos, and that sort of helped us plan a lot of things there. I mean, if I were to write like whatever our playbook was, essentially like, start with a great product, right? Focus on like having like a ruthless experimentation sort of framework where you are sort of driven by data. Do a lot of experiments before launch, and like plan for a big bang launch, right? I think that sets the stage for you to sort of, like then make things more. Yeah.
So I think as we work with multiple companies across our portfolio and otherwise in the ecosystem also, so a lot of founders or teams are struggling to find the right influencers, right?
Right.
So what is the maths? So you say everything is an engineering problem, as I understand from you.
Right.
or most of the problems in growth. So how do you find those influencers, and where do you find those influencers?
Yeah, I mean, it's not very hard if you're on social. You can like mark some of those people. I think like what we did was like we looked at similar products, right? Like and say, okay, which influencers have sort of worked with them in the past. We also looked at like a lot of our users, like looked at their social pattern and see what kind of users are they following, right? And we divide them into like 3-4 different buckets: nano, influencer, micro, macro. I think the influencer finding part is relatively like not that challenging. I think what is challenging is like getting to them, negotiating the rates, right? And making sure that like they're willing to work with you. Generally, like our principle was to like follow like the content that we like, right? And that we think that our users would like, and then rapidly experiment with those kind of creators, and then like take a look at them and like find lookalikes from those influencers, and sort of spread things out. I think at one point like we were shipping almost like 500 videos a day, like AI generated videos on TikTok and Insta.
And what kind of budget one should plan for at the launch when you're doing your first launch of your app?
Right. I mean, I think we spent $100,000.
That's it.
Yeah. On the first launch. Yeah, we also had like YC network behind us, so I think that also helped. We were deciding should the launch post be from YC, from us, from me, or from our company account. And then we figured out, okay, like YC had the biggest following, so let's just like promote the YC post rather than anybody else's post. And I think like what we were looking at is largely like we had this math in our mind that how many impressions do we need to translate to how many users, and then we were just optimizing for impression, like where can we get more impression from. Yeah.
So 10 million 2 months is purely influencer marketing, primarily driven by or are there any other factors?
Yeah, I think I mean there are a bunch of other things. Like for example, like we got our CRMs right, like how do you sort of re-engage users, because a lot of people would come, they will try the first thing and then they would drop off, right? And like how do you sort of re-engage those users back, right? And for the first few weeks we didn't have anything, but and again, like all of these things are not like very easy to like do badly, right? For example, like if you don't warm up your emails, right, like your emails will end up in spam, right? So whenever we first started sending out emails, we sent it out to like all people in our network and said, okay, go reply to that email, like move it from back to spam to your normal inbox. I think a lot of these are known sort of strategies now, but I think it's very like if you just go like spray and pray, right, it's very easy to sort of miss out some of these things, and you would say that, oh, this channel is not working for me. Like I mean, my belief is that every single channel is going to work for you, right? Especially for a product like ours, where like like everybody's a user, and so general sort of thesis right now is that like you should pick 1 or 2 channels and just double down on those, right? My thesis is that we should pick every single channel and just make it work. So CRM sort of worked really well for us now. Influencer obviously has been working. Like we also have this like made with Emergent badge on the websites that we make, and that drives a lot of traffic for us also, right? So there is this natural virality built in the product. I don't think we have done the best job at it right now. I think we are sort of still making it better. Like for example, our previews die down after 30 minutes, but we are fixing that. But generally, like what we have seen is that you should figure out what is naturally viral in your product and how do you amplify that, right? So we sort of encourage people to share that. We saw a lot of these people coming back through those links to us. And I think roughly like 4-5% of our traffic is just through those badges today. Yeah.
How many sign-up users you got with this in the 2 months? While we have the 10 million in 2 months.
Yeah, I think we have over 1 million users on the platform.
Wow.
Right now. Yeah.
Million sign-ups.
Million, yeah, users. Yeah, sign-ups. Yeah.
And number of paid users?
I think probably 20,000.
Oh, wow. So that's staggering amount in 2 months' time.
Right.
So that shows the stickiness of the product and the way people are finding.
I think there is also underserved revenue opportunity that for example, when we started with like $10 plan, right? And I think that's a good strategy, right? Because you want to like lower the barrier of entry for users to try the product. And then we sort of increase the pricing to 20. Like we just recently launched a $200 plan, like which a lot of people are buying. So I think you can increase the pricing, but I think like I would just optimize for trial first, right? So people can try. We also like looked at how much free credit should we give. So we experimented with that. Like is 5 free credits good? Is 10? Like at what point are users able to build the right app, right? And again, some of the things that people miss out like early on, and again, what helped us was like we had like constant good tracking of every single data in our system, like how many users are converting, like what is the top of point, right? Like we have these like funnels. Like I think as long as like your growth team is obsessed with the data and they're looking at this growth number every single day, I think you'll make it work. Like for example, we have like hour-wise plan on which geos will fire, and like we have a backup plan on okay, if this geo doesn't fire, which geos will go next, right? So like we treated, and some of this like because I've run an operational business in Nazo before, right? Like where like we were just managing cities and like like bunch of these riders on the ground, like sort of we have borrowed some of those things from there. Yeah.
Especially in this whole token business, as you get, is a free plan or $10 plan, a lot of users come, right? And stickiness, of course, you get to know over a longer period of time. So how do you, I often think, how do you think about PM? I'll give you a little bit more context. In the SaaS world or in the business applications primarily, we said, okay, repeatable users, user is paying you, or business teams are paying you. If you can, you same use case, so therefore you have early signs of PMF, and then you kind of start scaling that use case, right? So in such a industry where you are in, where everybody's a consumer, you have token economics going on, how do you think of PMF?
To me, PMF is when you can keep increasing your price without dropping users, right? And I think we have been sort of being able to do that. I think that's a true sign that like the value that you are providing is bigger than what they're paying, right? And like we have this constant sort of like feedback from our users that like I was trying to build this app, like I went to a dev shop, got $100,000 quote, right? And I was able to build this on Emergent, at $3,000, and that sort of shows like how users are sort of pricing us in their head. To them, we are a steal right now because they're able to build this thing that A, they would not have been able to build at all. B, like would have been really pricey, right? And so for me, like that like if you can keep increasing your pricing without like user dropping off, I think that's sort of a real sign of like like you are on a good track. I mean, my first realization of PMF was when like one of our power users came to our SF house, took us out for drinks, and I mean that had never happened to me before. And like he just came and said, hey, like I've been trying to build on Emergent for so long, and like love the product, and let's go. And he was actually CTO of Pixar, like so like a celebrity, and just randomly happened to be on Emergent building, and is a big sort of and that was the first time I realized, okay, like maybe we have something great on our hands. Yeah.
So I'll tell you a small story. We just invested in a startup. Very senior founder had a $100 million exit,
Right.
and I was sitting in brainstorming on create a prototype, start with user interface. I told them, I work with Mukund very closely. Why don't you start Emergent? They said, no, Lovable is better than prototyping and Emergent. I said, fine. Why don't you just put your prompt and we'll see? He said, no, we don't want to waste our time. We already want to ship the product in 1 month. I said, fine. So we did the meeting over 2 hours. Then I went back home next day morning and met them again. I said, Manav, I want to tell you something. Emergent is far better than Lovable because it took 5 more minutes. But when the output came, there is no comparison between Lovable and Emergent. So I'm seeing that constant output of the product love across the board, at least when I have used, or when the people who are close to me have used it.
Right. I think general like experience with Emergent is that if you stay a little bit longer, like I think you'll stick around. And
so the reason I'm pointing out is insight typically is that you give a lot of value to the user in the first 10 seconds or 1 minute, right?
Right.
But sometimes good products actually gets more sticky if you wait for a little bit more longer, because of the value you're providing is a real application which is built end to end,
Right.
as against giving you a wow factor and then not able to build a little to promise of a full app.
Right.
So which is very counterintuitive, right? If you think.
Right. I think like everybody told us that hey, you should optimize for speed. There's a big trade-off between like building quality software and building it fast, right? So we took that trade-off. That like our big bet was that eventually platforms which are able to build better software are going to win, right? And that's why our focus has been like largely on like building the best coding agent, building like owning the entire infra.
Kudos to you and the team to stick to that premise, right? It's very.
It takes a lot of conviction to take some of these asymmetric bets today.
Yeah, and I remember, after we invested, we went to YC also. That you want to understand how YC works. Given your experience, I thought it's something. It's really a learning focused decision, and a lot of Indian founders go to YC as well, right? These days. And I know you have taken a lot of contrarian bets, like the one that let me give the value of 4 minutes instead of giving in the first minute, because you want to give a much more deeper and end-to-end app. So what were a few contrarian bets or learning that you had from that experience? Right. I'm asking a question for larger ecosystem, because YC is very popular. They've done a brilliant job, of course.
No, I think YC experience is great. My sort of like understanding has been that like all the advice is good, but like it's generally like not every time applicable, right? So you need to pick and choose what advice is good. And I think even if you ignore all the advice, if you like have the right direction and product, I think you're gonna still win. Like we pretty much ignored every single YC advice in the book, and like still we're here. Like I mean, YC says that launch fast. We like launch 9 months later. They say like, hey, like don't build for scale. We build for scale from day zero. I'm not saying that like like people should not follow those advice. I just think that like advices are applicable like to a broader general terms, but like you need to pick what is applicable for you, right? And I think as long as like you are solving a problem which is closer to your heart, and like you have good insights on that problem, like I think you can sort of win. Our general sort of philosophy has been that like, hey, we will sort of start thinking about what is going to be there 2 years out, right? And start thinking about that, building that now. So like when like Copilot was famous. We were sort of building on agentic layer, like way before memory became sort of popular. Like we were building memory, and right now there are a bunch of things that we're doing, like which we think like it'll be sort of super relevant like 6 months from now, like RL and bunch of those things. So I feel that like I mean I think in general like it's a great experience. People should try it, right? But I just think that like not every advice is for everyone. Yeah, and we pretty much sort of like knowingly unknowingly ignore a lot of those advice. But if you have conviction in what you're building, and would appreciate that Together was also like like a great partner there, where you guys were really patient. Like we were like iterating, pivoting like crazy, and like every single day we'll have a new idea, a new thought. I think having that space really helped us like find the right positioning and the product that we wanted to build.
Where do you go from here? So what is the next number on the board in the office?
No, right now we're very focused on like end usage of the apps, right? I think like we think the revenue is a byfunction of that now, right? So like obviously revenue is a big sort of focus for us, but like a lot of our focus has now moved to like how many apps have actual usage that are getting built on the platform, and we are very focused on cracking that problem, because we think that is the holy grail north star of this vibe coding space. And yeah, I mean, I think we're just focused on growing really fast. We're going to continue to grow like insanely fast. One of the things that we keep asking ourselves is that and this was on the day of the launch. One of the teammates asked me that like like we have spent so much money, like do you think we have provided that much value? Like at that point we had probably burned almost $1 million without launching a product, and we were calculating, okay, how many apps have been built, how many hours it would have taken a developer to build, and then we calculate, oh, like probably on day of the launch we probably like delivered a lot more value than we have spent so much, right? So I think we care a lot more about like, hey, what is the end user value that's getting delivered, and that's what we are focused on right now.
Thank you. Thanks guys.